Hey everyone, hope you all are doing great. Today I have Mr. Rakesh Sharma with me. He is joining us from US. He is an entrepreneur and a franchisee consultant. Today we are going to discuss with him regarding his journey, life journey, and how he have came through everything and reached this point. Okay, so hey Rakesh, I welcome you on my blog. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. Hey, Kumar, how you doing?
Good, good. So, for the audience, let us know about something about yourself, like about you, so that people can know you better.
Okay, well, I'll keep it brief, otherwise I'll bore everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Firstly, my name, my full name is Rakesh Sharma, but most people call me Rak, R-A-K. That's probably easier for everyone. So it's only because Kumar comes from the same background that I do, his Indian background, that he can say my full name. But let me tell you, I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, many, many years ago, to East Indian parents. My dad emigrated from India to Kenya, which was a British colony, to make a life for himself along with his brothers. And I was born there. He met my mum there. It was an arranged marriage, which is kind of not much of that happens these days, even amongst Indians. But myself, my brother, and my two parents moved to the United Kingdom, England, at the age I was 10 years old at the time. So I grew up in London, just outside of London, England, and gained my education, all my mannerisms, and my dry sense of English humor as well. I attained there. I got married there, settled down, did very well. And then, unfortunately, I went through a divorce and I just thought it was time for a change. And at the same time, I met my now wife of 15 years, Paula. She's from Brazil. And we moved to Orlando from England in 2015. So this is where we're at now.
Wow, wow! It's a awesome journey, I will say. Like you started from Kenya, then you moved to England, where you have done your studies, and then you like a good part of your journey was in England, and then you moved to US. So, just I have curiosity to know that what you have learned, because these are all are different cultures, right? You have a background of an Indian culture, then you born and brought up in Kenya, then you moved to England, and now UK, and now US. So what are the learning out of it? If you just share a few things.
Well, I mean, every culture, every nationality, every religion, every caste has a good and a bad. My parents were devout Hindus. I was brought up as a devout Hindu in Kenya. To this day, I don't touch beef, but that's because my parents wouldn't have appreciated that. And it is what it is. Like I say, there's good and bad in everyone and every country. I'd say kind of growing up in Kenya at a very early age, and then moving to England was an amazing experience. Not just for me, my parents. Just imagine you've had your whole life, and I think they were about 45, something like that, when we moved from Kenya to England. Not having a house, not having a job, not having anything, and risking it all for their two sons. Just shows you what parents do. And that made me a better parent, number one, to understand that, your kids, certainly for me and my wife, they mean everything to us. So they made that major sacrifice. And the other thing I learned throughout the whole experience was that, my parents taught my brother and I that you have to be humble, always be humble and respectful to all. Now in Kenya and also in England, we had people of all types of colors, all types of races, all types of religions. And frankly, to this day, I teach my kids, number one, obviously respect yourself, and then you'll gain respect from others. But also respect others, and do not disrespect them for just their color or their race or their religion. Just because, you know, I'm not a practicing Hindu. My wife is Christian. I go to a Christian church all the time because I want my kids to learn about God. There's a greater being,
Absolutely.
and we all need to be grounded. So that's really what I learned there, I'd say, pretty much. And the other thing I learned was that my parents came. My dad was a clerical officer in Kenya, and my mum was a school teacher. And they gave all that up. I mean, they were, I'm sure they weren't making a lot of money, but enough to keep my brother and myself in our house, small house. We were happy, and they took that risk to move there. And when they moved there, they couldn't get a job in their profession straight away because at that time, you know, I guess there was some racism or whatever. I never let that get to me. That's not, I should say up front, because and so they took jobs on. My dad worked in a factory. My mum worked in a factory as well, and doing menial tasks, which they're not used to. So I remember one day, this is my greatest motivator in life, Kumar. My dad went to work. He used to do night shifts because that's the only job he could get in a factory. He'd never worked in a factory in his life. And he was highly diabetic. And he went to sleep at the machine. So like 5 o'clock in the morning, my mum gets a phone call and my dad was in hospital. He'd gone to sleep. This machine was a cutting machine, and he went to sleep and his finger got chopped off. Can you imagine? So he was in hospital and he came back, and fortunately they could stitch it together, the finger, and he came back. And I'll never forget that, obviously, to this day. My dad said, he said, look, we came to this country, never let this happen to you. And that did it for me. You know, I always get emotional when I say that because that was amazing what they did for us. And to be kind of vilified in a new country where there weren't that many brown people in England at that time. And that also taught me that, you know, white English people are also my friends. And I'll be honest, I've never had a problem anyway, even when I got a job as a, so I went into sales and I got a job in sales. I never let racism get to me. I just accepted there was racism. I've just got to make sure I'm better than anyone else out there. And that kind of, so that was my kind of driving force. But yeah, so enough about me. I don't want to keep talking about me.
No, I really appreciate the way you spoke everything from heart. Like possibly I know you from last 3 months, and now I can understand why you are that humble. Okay, and that's possibly because of your background, because of the journey in your life, and the things which you have learned through it. I really appreciate the knowledge which you have shared with us today. Another thing which is, you know, for me, which is I would love to know from your end, is like this particular journey from one particular culture to another culture and then another culture. And you said that your wife is Brazilian, right? And
Right.
Christian. So there is a mix of multiple culture in your life. Is it somehow affected your entrepreneurial self or your entrepreneurial, character? And if so, then how it is, like how it helps you to become a good entrepreneur, or how you think that, you know, it backs you up?
Well, quite, I think quite the opposite, to be honest, because, you know, having, I always loved Brazil because I'm a big soccer football fan from England. And I used to follow the Brazil national team. And they always used to have a smile on their face, even if they were losing, even if they got tackled badly, if they got a bad decision. And that kind of taught me something as well. And so I had an affection to go to Brazil. So that's how I connected with my wife, Paula. But I think it teaches you other people's culture. Another reason I got married to Paula, I met her on the internet. And people don't believe this story. But anyway, we met and I went across to meet with her. And when I met with her for the first time, face to face, in those days we didn't have Zoom and all this kind of stuff. It was just on the telephone and by kind of literal English, because my Portuguese is zero and it's still pretty much zero. And she was learning English. Anyway, I went across, and what really did it for me there again was family values, and seeing that her family were as close knit as Indian families normally are. You know, I'm very close to my brother, my cousins, the extended family. So that made a big difference, you know, in us connecting. Obviously, we liked each other, and then she moved to England for a short while, and then after that, we moved to Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
So all positive stuff, though, because you learn on the way. Even though we didn't have a direct communication in terms of language,
Mm-hmm.
you could do it. I learned to do it through expression. You know, my because I'm mainly vegetarian. Paula's mum, and they're very heavy meat eaters, Brazilians. You probably knew that. And she used to go to the local store and take me with her. I used to drive her and buy vegetables and boil them for me. And she thought I loved it. Actually, I hated them because I don't like boiled stuff. I'm Punjabi Indian, so I like to have fried stuff. But anyway,
And all.
but God bless her. She did that for me. And that kind of teaches you that she didn't have anything. I mean, she'd never seen an Indian person in her whole life. And she actually thought that when her daughter got married to me, that she'd be walking like 3 foot behind me. You know, that was the kind of impression we had. And there you are. Anyway, all kind of fun and games. You probably want me to talk a little bit about how I developed into a serial entrepreneur.
Exactly. Like I know that you have multiple businesses right now. So I just want
Right.
to understand that what influenced you, what makes you to create your own business, what
Okay.
drives you every day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, having said what I've just said to you about growing up in England and so on, at a very young age, at the age of 10, my parents were earning money, but they weren't earning that much money. And I knew it was tough for them. So I got a job as a newspaper delivery person at that time. You used to deliver newspapers locally.
Mhm.
And I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and sometimes freezing cold. You have freezing fog. You can't even see through the end of your end of your nose. And I used to go out and do that and love doing it because it was teaching me something, and I was having fun with it. She had a bike as well, which I didn't. My parents couldn't afford to get me a bike, so I used to have a bike, put the newspapers in, and then go and deliver them, and then come back, have a shower, eat something, go to school. Uh, then I also worked got a job as an assistant to a milk delivery guy. And the fun in that was he had a cart, one of these like a go-kart, a golf go-kart,
Yeah.
and he let me drive that. You know, that was fun. And delivering, in those days, milk used to be delivered in bottles directly to your home. So that was fun. And I met with lots of people, old, young, whatever it was, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I also in the summer got a job with a local dry cleaner who let me drive his van. I was old enough. I had a license by then. And I used to go and collect people's laundry, bring it back to him. He used to clean it, and then I used to go and deliver it. So that was fun. And I, again, enjoyed meeting people and so on. I think you've got to be a very open person. I think that's probably what I'm trying to get across, right? Because you meet there's not one country on this earth, I think, anymore that has just one religion, one caste, you know,
Absolutely.
anywhere in the world. So you've got to be open and open to other people's ideas. You're not always right. Other people are right.
Absolutely.
So basically, take the best from everything. That's what I was trying to do.
Absolutely.
Uh,
I'm in sync with you on that part. And let me very honest,
yeah.
yesterday only I was talking about something called EQ and SQ. Okay, so we talk about IQ, right? Intelligent quotient, but
Mm-hmm.
when we don't never bother to understand people's EQ and SQ, which is very
Right.
important or very like I think the most two important factors, like EQ is emotional quotient and SQ is social quotient. How much you are
Hmm.
socially, you know, you can socially, you can make yourself available socially, or you can mix up with people. So I think you because of your journey, you have learned these two things, and that makes you a good entrepreneur.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
EQ and SQ.
Yeah, that and a lot of hard work, a lot of risk taking, a lot of never being scared to take a risk. As long as you've done your homework, there's all that to come. I mean, I can kind of expand on that in a second. So after we moved to England, I came to America for a vacation. A very good friend of mine is a major property developer here in Orlando, Florida. I still lived in England at the time, and I was married to my first wife. And I came here on vacation, and I saw the Hallmark cards concept, the greeting cards concept. And we had a small family retail convenience store back in the UK, like a lot of Indians at that time, immigrants into the UK at that time. And I loved the concept. And I came back and immediately contacted the Hallmark cards uh, regional people for the UK, and got on really well with them. Opened our first store in the town that we lived in, which is just west of Heathrow Airport in London.
Mhm.
And that was a major success, and quickly grew that over the next 3 to 4 years into 3 locations.
Wow.
And those 3 locations were in the top 5 every year for retail sales in Hallmark cards. And remember, over there, it's a much smaller country. There were only about 300 retailers.
Mhm.
So that was, and I loved that. I still have the retail blood in me. Every time I go past a Hallmark store, I want to go in and let's start again. But we didn't do that. So that was that. And then we moved to Orlando in 2005 and bought a homeowners association management business, which basically means uh, homes that are in a community that's normally gated, has a common swimming pool, has a common play area for the kids, that kind of stuff, uh, which is very prevalent in the United States. I hadn't come across it in the UK. So I'm still a licensed community association manager for the state of Florida. So I enjoyed that, and I built the business up from 22 communities when we purchased that business to 45 communities when we sold it.
Wow.
So we more than double the revenue and the profitability on that. But it was really getting too much. Our son was young, so I wanted to spend more time with him. I was coming back late every night. So after that, we got into the budget blinds window treatments or custom window treatments business as a franchisee. And by the way, I looked at many, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for new business ideas. And I'd looked at many different franchises back in the UK, including Baskin Robbins, the ice cream, and Dunkin' Donuts, and God knows what, mainly retail. But anyway, we're in the budget blinds business here in Southeast Orlando.
Mhm.
And I love doing it. Again, I meet people from all over the country that move down to Florida from New York or whatever. And we get time to chit chat, share stories, and whatever else. I learn much more about the American culture. They learn much more about me, hopefully. And, I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's sales and it's marketing. I love doing what I do. But I think hopefully my experience in life and my experience in business of a good 30, 35 years plus should be of some significance to anyone that's looking to get into business for themselves for the
Yeah,
first time. There are
absolutely.
many fears. There are a million fears. I'll be honest, and I'm not being arrogant. I never had a fear. And I've made wrong decisions and lost a lot of money. So don't think that I'm super successful.
No,
But I'm not scared to lose.
yeah,
I
I think
think
we
that's the
learn
key.
from our mistakes, right? We always learn from
Yeah,
our mistakes. So the more we do mistake, we will learn more.
yeah.
We will in a
And
better.
And the top businessmen on this earth, Richard Branson, Buffett, all these guys have made major mistakes. Donald Trump, he stood up after you get knocked down. You got to stand up because there's always another side.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so
yeah, let's get back to possibly the area where I have more interest. Okay, so franchisee consulting. You are a franchisee consultant as well, right? At this moment, you are
right.
with FCC. Now, what makes you think that you can be a good franchisee consultant? What you can what makes you feel that you can bring something on the table which possibly no one else can bring? What is the differentiator in your mind? And you get into
okay. Well, the number one thing, and I'm looking at it from the viewpoint of, say, you were the prospect that's considering buying into a franchise business. Why should you want to talk to me? That's your question, I imagine. I'd say, because of my extensive experience in life, in business, mistakes, and the things I've got right. In fact, the mistakes are probably more important to learn about and learn from. And to be able to advise someone in an honest manner, because I've lost money, I don't want anyone else to lose money. I will do my 180% to make sure that if you wanted to buy a business, it was the right business for you. Say, for example, you saw a new concept that you thought was sexy, trendy, let's say it was a fashion thing. I won't name any names. And you've got no experience in fashion, you've got no experience in retail, you've got no experience in managing staff. I'll be honest with you, and I wouldn't put anything like that in front of you. I'd learn about who you are during our initial call, which is about 10 to 15 minutes, find out what your background is. You find out a bit about me. At the end of it, you decide if you want me to take this any further on your behalf. And then I would direct you towards the right brands that we represent over 400 emerging brands with the company that I work with, which is a franchise consulting company. And the intention is to make sure it's a right fit for you. I can only do that once I know who you are, what your pluses and minuses are, and where you want to go. Where do you want to be in 5 years down the road? And I've got to know that. And coming back to the example I was giving you about, not having management experience and so on. So, for example, it's pointless you running a restaurant because you employ a lot of people with that kind of background that I've just identified. And if you can't manage people, and you've already told me you've got no experience, you're not a very good customer service person, that is definitely the wrong business for you to be in, right?
Yep.
Because you've got to be able to motivate those guys. Some of these guys don't turn up at work, How do you handle that? And sometimes you've got to put your hands to work when someone doesn't show up at work. Just because it's a franchise and you paid money for it doesn't mean that it runs by itself. You have to be the driver, whether you as an owner operator or whether you have 2 or 3 units and you manage them from a helicopter standpoint. But yeah, and I've been there, done it all. I'm sorry, I'm not sounding too arrogant, but and learn from it. I just wrote a few notes down for what I think might be useful for someone who's considering being an entrepreneur. Number one, 150, 200%, you've got to believe in yourself. Not to the point of you don't look at reality. The next point is, and they'll answer the first one, is to make sure you do your homework properly. Say you're considering a restaurant business. You need to look at that thoroughly. What's happening with the restaurant industry? Right now, the people that are doing well during this pandemic are people that have adapted to people not wanting to dine in. So you've got to have drive-throughs. You've got to have curbside pickup. You've got to be able to increase your delivery business. You've got to be able to take advantage of catering opportunities locally with maybe hotels or whatever it may be to deliver food to them. That's how you're going to stay alive. So And I think, you can go off and do all this by yourself, but to have a good franchise consultant. And by the way, one thing I didn't mention is my fees to you are absolutely zero, because we're looked after by the franchisor. Effectively, we're marketing departments for these emerging brands.
Okay. So basically, let me understand it once again. So you are saying that you don't charge anything to the customer or the person who is actually trying to buy the franchise. Your fees is just
Absolutely
by
not.
someone else. Okay, great.
Absolutely not. And apart from the money, I wouldn't feel comfortable until I'd put you into the right business or directed you towards the right business for you,
Mhm.
not for me, for you,
Absolutely.
because you're the one that's going to have to sign a contract with our franchisor for 10 years. That's a normal length of the contract. So you better be sure. It's like getting married to someone, you better be sure that that's the right person for you.
Absolutely.
So,
So,
and I help you along that.
so your role is mainly as a middleman, right? In case of India, like we do this, what can I say? Family arranged marriages, right? So there is a
Right,
middleman who know the groom and the bride, and then they try to patch up. So your job role is
right.
like that, right? You try to understand the person who want to buy the franchisee, then you try to figure out which franchisee is best for him or her, and then you try to get them into that relationship, right?
Okay, because at that stage, when I'm talking to you first as a prospective, Kumar, I know a lot about the franchisor in
Mhm,
terms of not just what product they've got. I do my homework on that side, but
mhm.
I don't know enough about you.
Yeah,
And like I said a second ago, at the end of the day, I'm going to back away from it when you guys sign a franchise agreement between the two of you,
mhm,
you as the prospect and the franchisor. So I know what this guy, the franchisor, is looking for, because I can put 10 people in front of them today, and
mhm.
I know they won't be suitable for what the franchisor is looking for and what their mindset is. So I've got to put the right people. It's got to work for you, and it's also got to work for the franchisor. So me, what happens with me in the middle doesn't really matter, because I'm not going to be there
Absolutely.
doing that marriage that you've got. So you've got to, but I will help you all the way to make sure, with my experience and knowledge, and I obviously keep up with all the economic news and stuff. It's just an interest to me as a business owner. The stock market, whatever is going to affect unemployment figures, whatever it may be, it's going to affect us to ensure that I can help you make the right decision for you.
Mhm.
So after we've had the initial conversation, we'll talk again. I'll send you what I call a confidential questionnaire, which gives me a bit more detail about who you are, what your likes and dislikes are. It's not a difficult form to fill in. And obviously, your financial capabilities. Because at the end of the day, I might like to buy a Porsche, but I can only afford to buy a Ford car, right? So
Exactly.
the two things don't match up. And that's another point, very important point, both from my business experience and it's very important for franchising. Do not go into a business that is not properly funded.
Mhm,
You've got to make sure it's funded properly,
mhm,
because the biggest reason for franchisees not working or a franchisee whose business does not work, the biggest reason is because their funding has been wrong from the start. They've gone into a business. Let's say the franchise fee is
mhm.
$50,000. Okay, they go in thinking, okay, well, I've got 50,000. That's it. Let's go into this franchise. Don't forget, you need working capital. You're starting a business in a new location from nothing. Yes, you've got the backing of the franchisor's concept and so on. But most franchisors will tell you you need at least 12 months, maybe up to 18 months worth of working capital.
Mhm.
Working capital being monies that are going to keep your business going while you build up the sales.
Mhm.
And yes, you will be successful, same as the other franchisees in that franchise concept, that franchisor's concept. But it takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Absolutely.
So, things like that. It's just kind of very matter of fact, advising you on what you need to do. So I think I've covered pretty much everything there. Now,
There is one thing which I want to ask, like as we all have seen that the global scenario is changing, like due to COVID-19, due to different geopolitical situation. This landscape, the global landscape, business landscape is changing very fast. So in this scenario, what is your suggestion? Like if someone want to buy a franchisee, then what are the things they need to look first, and then they get into those that particular business?
okay, well, number one, again, coming back to what I said at the onset of this, I would look at finding something for you once I know enough about you, because I know what the franchisor wants, is to make sure that I find a business that is going to fit you and your future plans and your retirement plans and your funding, your likes, your dislikes, all of that's going to come into account. And right now, if it was me and someone was advising me, knowing what I know about the economy and so on, I think anything that's recession resistant is going to be top of the list. Be that senior care, be that pet care, be that automobiles, be that food or restaurants that have drive-throughs, that have pickup, that have catering, be that healthcare, childcare, certainly in the US, because people are not going to stop eating. People are not going to stop driving their car. People are not going to go and get their hair cut. Barbers, hairdressers, they're still going to be in business. People still want their nails, ladies still want their nails done. So that all of that's going to go on. We're going to get back to some kind of normality, hopefully in the next 5 to 6 months. But those things don't stop. People might do it slightly differently. They might do it on the internet or whatever, but those things will happen. Looking after cars, you've got to get your car serviced, because without transport, certainly in the United States, you can't get anywhere. So yeah, these are all important businesses, and we have some great opportunities there at very affordable levels that produce really good revenue with companies. Because basically I represent emerging brands. We don't represent Taco Bell or McDonald's or anything like that, because those guys have their own marketing departments. We effectively, as a franchise consultant, I'm a marketing department for one of my brands to find them the right people, and that's what they're looking for.
Now the next thing which I want to hear from you is, for example, if someone want to buy a franchisee and he thinks that he needs some funding, okay, so he has certain fund with him, but he needs some extra funding. So are you going to help him? Is there anything where you can assist him and to arrange this particular fund?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because like I said earlier, funding is probably the most important thing to make sure, assuming everything else is right, is to make sure that you have appropriate funding. Now, we have specialists that we work with that are industry specialists. That's franchise industry specialist funding experts who are connected to the largest banks. And that's all they do is franchise business consulting funding. And they will be able to advise you much better than I can. I've got a very good idea, but I'll put you in touch with those guys. And they normally do a free consult. So they'll talk to you for free up front to find out what you're looking to do. Obviously, they'll talk to me as well and say, hey, Rak, what kind of franchise is Mr. Kumar looking at? And how much does it cost? All that kind of stuff. And then knowing what I know, once you've given me the CQ, I've got a good idea what you've got that you're willing to invest right now in cash, what you're looking to, what your net worth is. And we should know that as individuals anyway, and not pass that information, but if I get asked for that, I'd put you in contact with the independent franchise funding expert and they'll help you with your retirement. You can take money out of your retirement and put it into this, whatever way you want to do it.
Okay. Okay. Great.
I think, and at the best interest rates and the best for you, because they know that you're a client of mine.
I think currently, the interest rate is also very low in US, right? So if someone is
Very low.
get into a franchisee business, this is possibly one of the best times, right? When they can jump into the franchisee business by taking some funding and other stuff, right?
Well, I mean, house prices are still holding up very well here. If you're going to borrow some equity on your house, if you've got equity in your house, you can borrow from that. If you've got to borrow money, yes, the interest rates are very, very low. I think they're about 3% from a bank, depending on what kind of loan, what your security is, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, and I mean, people, as an alternative to franchising, some people, and there are alternatives, obviously, and people will say, okay, well, fine, I'm going to put my money into stocks and shares and bonds. But I mean, look what happens with the stock market. Yes, you can make a lot of money when it's on the way up, but overnight, well, not even overnight, within seconds, you could lose a lot of money as well. So.
No, definitely, and I believe that it is all about personal choices, right? Some
Right.
people, they actually want to play the game the way it is. Like they want to do the hard work. They want to create a business. So for them, franchise is a far better option than anything else. And
Well, I get people coming to me and say, listen, I've got enough money in my retirement. I'm ready to. That's not everyone, but you do have people like that. But you know what? What the heck am I going to do sitting at home? I'll be fighting with my wife all the time. I don't want to be doing gardening. I don't want to be, going to the grocery store, and I don't want to be watching TV all the time. So,
yeah, just like
they like to have something on the side. See, I mean, I offer stuff that's a franchise can be for someone, an individual or a family or a couple that want to get into business for the first time. I offer opportunities for someone who's looking for an additional revenue income stream and thinking, well, I don't have enough for my retirement, or my daughter's going to get married in 15 years. I won't have enough money for a wedding. I want to do something extra that's going to bring in some more money. And we call that semi-absentee. They can run a business where they don't have to be there day to day with each single thing. As long as they set the scene and tell the manager and find a good manager and tell them what to do and how to do it. And of course, the franchise, part of the reason for buying into a franchise is that the system's already set there.
Yeah.
They're proven. And another reason I should tell you, I'll just jump in there, where some franchisees fail is because they are not willing to follow the system. As a budget blinds franchisee, if I think that I can do better than 1,200 other current franchisees because they've all followed the system and they're all successful, guess what? I'm going to drop out. I'm going to lose.
Absolutely. Because that system is proven. Already people are
absolutely
got success through that particular system. And that's possibly one of the
and
by a franchisee, right?
Right. And well, another set of people that might be looking is people that maybe got money on the stock market, or they've got their own successful business, right? But they're thinking, you know what, I really like this emerging brand here because they're exploring something that, there's a gap in the market. So I want to get in at ground level, but I don't want to run it myself. So they'll buy into that business or invest in that business and employ people to run that. So you have different people with different motivations.
Absolutely.
So I can satisfy any and all of those.
Absolutely. I have already taken a lot of time from your end, and let me very honest.
Okay.
You have you given all the answers. I know that these are none of the question were pre-planned. So I ask everything on that particular moment to you, and you were as clear as possible from your end. I just have one more question from my side. If I want to give you, if I want to ask you that, give one single advice to the entrepreneurs which you have learned through your experience, what would be that? What's going to be that?
You mean advice on to get into a franchise business?
or any business? Like as an entrepreneur, what will be your advice to the upcoming entrepreneurs? Like
Okay.
whether they want to
Number.
get into the franchisee or want to start their own business.
Okay. Number one, without question, believe in yourself. Always believe in no one knows you better than you.
Yep.
You know what you can do and what you can't do. Be honest with yourself, believe in yourself, back yourself, get the support of your family. That's another thing that's very important in a franchise, because you might be working long hours and the family, might not, like I told you earlier, in my case, with a young child, sometimes you can't afford to be away at 10 o'clock at night or whatever. But it's going to be hard work. Believe in yourself, be ready to work hard, and be ready to grow your business. Don't be scared of growing your business. Work within a system, be a rule follower. Whatever the franchisor has already proven, it doesn't make sense not to follow that, because that's what you paid for in the first place, right? Otherwise, you could have set it up yourself. And just enjoy it and love it, and look forward to that 5 years down the road when you've set up your business and now you've got the franchisor coming to you and saying, hey, Mr. Kumar, we've got 2 or 3 other opportunities in such and such territory. Can you help us out? And we'd like for you to run those and take those over and build those up. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And then at the end of it, when you're ready to retire or go and live in the Bahamas, whatever you want to do, pay for your daughter's wedding, you've got everything in your own hands, Now you've got your financial freedom.
I totally in sync with you on that part. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving your time. And what else can I say? Like the amount of knowledge which you have given through your experience is really, I'm really thankful for that. Okay.
Oh, well, I look forward to working with anyone that watches this video. Please feel free to reach out to me. rack@thefranchiseconsultingcompany.com.
Sure.
And I'm sure Kumar will post my phone number.
Yeah, definitely. I will give all the details. So anyone who is watching this video, if you want to buy a franchisee, or you're thinking about starting even a new business, you can get in touch with Rakesh, and I will provide all the phone numbers and all other contact details with this particular video. So thanks a lot.
All right, sir. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Same from my side. Thanks a lot.